At some point in our journey in life, we have to recognize that there's nothing we can accomplish or any success we can reach that'll wash away the pain, the insecurity, the feeling of being not valid, the feeling of not being special that something in our childhood made us feel. This episode with Jordan Candlish is all about how men specifically can really heal themselves and then show back up in the workforce and in their purpose in life in a way that is an expression of their soul, not in a way that is this ongoing, incessant need to try to avoid a pain that was given to them when they were a child, the need to be seen or the need to be significant. I hope this conversation gives you more depth and understanding and texture to the ideas of the masculine role in life and even the feminine and how they work so well together. I also hope, just like it did for me, these concepts help you heal from the incessant need to work all the time so you can be good enough. And instead, you can show up in life with the intention to connect and provide and love on those in your life as part of your purpose. Thank you so much for taking time to watch this video or listen to this episode. Please, if you're watching this on YouTube, click the thumbs up and subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please take a moment to rate the show so we can get these kind of conversations to more people like you. If you wouldn't mind, man, just tell me a little bit more about Jordan. I've watched your talks. I've watched you talk about, the initial wake up period of going, am I going to spend my life climbing the corporate ladder? Is there something inside of me that's maybe a more meaningful use of my time? Just tell me a little more about your journey, man.
Yeah, I mean, I went the traditional path, to be honest, the path that you're fed by your parents, by society. At least where I grew up in Perth, Western Australia, most people go the traditional path. They get a degree, they go and work in a fucking corporation. Where I'm from is a big mining state, so there's a lot of people that go into engineering, work up in the mines. Everyone does the thing. And I just went that route, and I worked in accounting. I studied finance and accounting and got a job at Deloitte, one of the best firms in the world, pretty much doing tax returns for the fucking mega wealthy. And I wasn't really passionate about that, to be honest, bro. I just went in pursuit of money because that's what I thought security and stability and freedom was built around. To some degree it is, but what I realized in that journey is if you don't love the work that you do, you're wasting your fucking time. Like, you'll never really make it, or you'll never really achieve the level of fulfillment that someone who loves their craft will get. And at the time, the things that I loved was traveling the world and playing football. So when it came to
football, like foot football, or football like hand football, I don't know.
Soccer, the round football. Yeah, the round one. I call it football because in the UK where I follow a lot of the football out there, they call it football. But in Australia, in the States, it's soccer. So yeah, I love playing soccer and played semi-professionally, and I just wanted to be a pro footballer. That was my dream. So when I quit my corporate job, I actually flew out to Canada with the intention of pursuing my soccer career, while also I had an option to be paid to go to college out in the States. So at the time I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the college, I'm going to go do my MBA, and I'm going to go pursue football at the same time. But I realized that when I was traveling to some of these schools and I was trialing out some of the colleges, I was like, I don't want to go back to school. Like, I don't want to do my MBA. Like, I want to just start to do work that I love. And it was a difficult period because I had to let go of my football career. But I said yes to my career and following my passion at the time, which was health, wellness, personal development, self-development. And when I moved to Toronto, I just went all in on that. And I've not looked back since. It's been fucking 6 years. And yeah, man, I'm so fulfilled every day. I'm so grateful for this life, bro.
That's awesome, man. What a cool journey, bro. So did you start in more of health and personal development in like a fitness way? Was it counseling? What was it that you started with before we branch off into the specifically more masculine well-being and all that kind of stuff that your content's geared towards?
Yeah, I would say my original love was probably for health and fitness, to be honest. And I remember before I left my corporate job, I was actually thinking of going to do my personal training certification because I was like, I love fitness. I'm going to go be a PT. But for some reason, I wanted to be able to travel. Like, travel was something that I really loved. And when I started traveling and really getting to meet new people, I got my first life coach when I was 24 and when I was living in Canada. And that really opened me up to oh shit, coaching is so powerful. Like, how it accelerated me on my journey. And I just got to be around a lot of epic leaders, a lot of epic coaches and facilitators. And then eventually I stepped into kind of running my own business around coaching. Didn't plan to do that. It just kind of came into my path. And I was like, okay. And I originally started off just coaching a lot of women just coming to me when I was like 26. I was super young, bro. So no wonder a lot of men were like reluctant to get advice from some young dude just calling himself a life coach. So I was like coaching a lot of women. And I think having that safe, healthy masculine allowed a lot of women to open up to me and I was able to like get a lot of experience working on deeper layers. And then it was really over the last 2 years that I've started to move more into men's work, because I've just seen a real need, a real requirement for men to have more spaces where they can do this kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. The thing that really draws me to the content you put out, man, is the workaholic kind of thread. You know, I started my business about almost 10 years ago. Opened up the studio 8 years ago. It was a really great opportunity for me to get the significance that I really craved. You know, it was the more successful the business got. You know, I was, I don't know, 18, 19, 20. I was making $15,000, $20,000 take home every month. I had a Tesla at 20 years old. I was a gangster, baby, you know, and it was so great. So great. But about 2.5 years ago, I'm 26 now. 2.5 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, it started to kind of lose its draw, its interest. You know, I had a lot of friends that were in it. I had friends that were really, really successful in business and very much respect their achievements. But there was a lot of things missing from this area. Family, deep relationships, and something, man, that I've always been really drawn to is vulnerability. And that was something that didn't fit well in this kind of high achiever, alpha male, CEO, Andrew Tate kind of is the apex of, I think, a lot of the people that are in the kind of workaholic syndrome, you know, area. And what happened to me is I thought I lost my best friend. I thought my best friend died. That's a whole story, but it was like in an instant, something inside of me shifted. That number one was achievement and becoming successful and making lots of fucking money. And it was like in an instant, man. I didn't know it at the time. I spent months and months and months and months, almost the last 2 years, finding out what had shifted. But what had shifted is now connection was the most important thing to me. And my business and my business skills were... Sorry, I just broke up just for a second. My business skills and my business were no longer in my eyes, no longer were something that I could strangle to get all of the money and the excitement and the dopamine and the significance from, but more so felt like responsibilities that needed my attention if I was willing to ground myself enough to be present for its needs. So that workaholic stuff, man, talk to me a little bit. Sorry, we're getting a little bit of a breakup on the internet. What draws me to your work is the emphasis on the workaholic nature. And I just want you to talk about that, man. I want to hear about your experience with either with your own, healing. I've watched some of your videos on that, or with men working through that. Let's just talk about workaholism and kind of what's the roots of those kind of things.
Thanks for sharing all that, first and foremost. And wow, bro, you've achieved a lot, at only 26, like shit, man. So there's a lot of wisdom that's back there that I can sense. So big purpose. Thanks. For you. I can tell with doing this work. But yeah, the workaholic nature, the driven type, the type A personalities, the hustlers, like I have that same kind of imprinting, you could say. I have the same genes of where I'll fucking grind till I can't fucking grind anymore. And it's a mentality. We get it from our fathers, our dads, really. And that mentality served us for a period of time. And what happens is, like, the mentality serves us. Another way I like to call it is it's a part of us. It's a protective part. a protective identity that we learnt to wear to allow us to get the love that we needed, that weren't able to get as children. And how we get that love needed is by being seen. It's one of the ways we try to show to the world that, hey, look at me, I am good enough, I am worthy to receive love. And what that part thinks is, if I just go out and achieve more, and if I just get more money, if I just scale the business, if I just grow more followers, then I'll be worthy to receive. And this part, as we all know, if you're an overachiever and you've done the thing, I'm sure there's been times where you've achieved the goal, you've got the money, you've got the house, the car, the girl, whatever the fuck it is, and you've immediately gone, oh, nothing fucking changed. Maybe I was happy for like a minute, but then it's like, okay, now what? You're back with that dissatisfaction that's back there, that sense of like something's missing. And I just identified that really early, bro, in this journey. I identified it really early. I was like, what is that? No matter how much I do, I always seem to feel guilty that I'm not doing enough. Why? And the digger I dug, the more I realized it was a part of me. It was an inner child down there that just wanted my dad's love, just wanted to be validated from my father. And when I was able to give that validation to myself, when I was able to see and sit with these parts of me and look at them and say, hey, I fucking see you. I love you. You've got nothing to prove. You were born worthy. You are free. You are safe. And the minute I started to, condition that into my body, what started to happen was like lightness. I started to feel light. And then I was like, okay, what do I want to express in this world? What's trying to come through me? Yeah. If I don't give a fuck about what anyone else thinks and I don't need anyone's approval, what's trying to come through me? And then that's when I just started to follow that. And whenever I get caught in the trap or the illusion that there's something outside of me that I need to get, that's a sign that I need to stop. I need to just stop and look inward and just clear that. It's a clearing process, really, because sometimes it's easy to get lost in the game, bro. It's easy to get lost in the matrix of the life or thinking that it's all out there. It's not. It's all in here. And once you come from that place that I have everything, I'm coming from abundance, I've got nothing to prove, it creates a different frequency. You start to interact with a different energy. People feel it. People feel your lack of neediness. You end up making way more money, and it ends up happening with way less effort. It's way more flow, and you start to enjoy the process. Yeah. So they're the kind of indicators for me, man. Am I enjoying the process? Is there ease and lightness in what I'm doing? Because if there is, sweet, I'm on the right path. And if there's not, maybe there's just some refinement. Maybe I just need to pause for a moment and just inquire into what am I afraid of here? What am I running from? I hope that makes sense.
It does, man. When you talk about going inside to that part of you that feels guilty when I'm not working, I'm not doing something, I'm not getting after it, I feel like I need to be doing something. I know that very, very well. For years and years and years, I need to be on the grind. I need to be out there working hard because it inflated me to the size I felt most comfortable at. And when you talk about going into that part of you and beginning to sit with it, what comes up in me, man, is that's fucking scary, because that process that started inside of me, the reason it was so scary was because I was worried that if I healed, what if I'm not as driven? And if I've yet to, maybe that's why conversations like this are really helpful for people to hear and listen to, because you have to have an element of faith that says, like, maybe it's like a personal, like a purpose or a destiny of sorts to go through the process of the healing. But for some people, you're looking at it and going, fuck, like if I am not as neurotic, am I going to be as driven? And if I'm not as driven, I'm not ever going to be successful in what I'm doing. So it's quite the complicated dragon to approach.
Well, I hear you with that, because that's a lot of the fear behind a lot of successful people is they're afraid they're going to lose their drive if they slow down and start to integrate a lot of the wounding that's creating the drive. But my counter to that is that the drive becomes way more efficient. The drive becomes way more harmonious, where you don't need to sacrifice. You can still achieve so much and not have to sacrifice your health, your relationships, like your freedom. And that's the pathway that I feel like all of us are really yearning for. Like, we want to be able to still achieve like our fullest potential, whatever that looks like, to self-actualize the dormant potential that's within all of us, but not have it coming at a cost. not coming at a cost to
Yeah.
really enjoying the journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a line that that my therapist shared with me years ago, an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And one of the things that you said in one of the videos I watched of yours on YouTube, the opening line you said was, is your drive to achieve getting in the way of having nourishing relationships? So when you talk about the efficiency piece of that, that rings so true to me, man, because I wouldn't say after the healing, but I mean in a huge regard, after the healing of the workaholism, you find that it's not, since I'm not scratching for this significance and need for being loved, there's not this sense of urgency with your work. And if there's one thing I've learned in the last few months specifically, it's been having the patience to get the full picture and respond. And running a business with 10 staff members, there's a lot of need for that. Moments of meetings and interacting with people are less about me trying to appear as a leader and more about me really sitting into a place inside that's quiet, calm, and focused. And that's a great point, man. I love that you touched on that, because if it is inside of you that you're a creative and you feel this need to be contributing in really beautiful ways, if that's true, that needs a really healthy environment to be able to stretch out its arms and root itself so it can grow to the height it needs to. And if you don't, like, it's kind of weird to me to, for the first time in my life, be experiencing a deep relationship with a partner for 2.5 years now, longest relationship I've ever had. And at 5:30, bro, I cut it off and we cook together and we spend time together. Having that relationship and overall just having a sense of calm has allowed life to be more creative through me and feel like I'm closer to my purpose than I ever was when I was trying to make it this week or make it this year so I can feel like I'm a winner.
Man, the purpose is not something that needs to be achieved in the future. And I think that's the trap. It's like I need to find and fulfill upon my purpose. But I feel like our purpose is right now. As like all of us share that. Our purpose is like, what is it? Who are you here to be right now? And if your purpose is if you're thinking at some point in the future, then what happens is we start to have an unhealthy relationship with right now. We start to overlook it. We start to see it as like a means to an end. And you start to think, you're already prepping for something in the future. And like, that's a great example is if you can't like stop for a moment and just enjoy what's in front of you right now. And maybe there's a dinner with your partner and just like sitting down and going, hey, like, fuck, life's actually pretty good. I'm really happy. And like taking a moment to take that in and receive and open your heart and just express gratitude for the people that are in your life. Then if you can't do that now, then you're not going to fucking do it when you have millions of dollars in the bank or you're in the big house, you know? So the purpose is now. And then once you master the now, everything else just like reflects that. Everything else just kind of is a byproduct of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, life starts to take on this interesting spiritual dynamic.
Yeah.
You know, that achieving something, focusing on something, it's all dopaminergic. You know, it's all the dopamine. You ever read the book, The Molecule of More by Dr. Daniel Lieberman?
Sounds familiar. I don't think I've read it actually.
Wonderful book, man. I would definitely recommend it. The whole concept is that when you're talking about feeling good, there's two sides of the coin. There's one that you feel good when you're about to get something that feels good when you have it. But if you don't know how to make that transition, then your life will be full of pursuit with no having. The dopamine is what makes you feel so excited when you're about to get the win. And serotonin and endocannabinoids and oxytocin and endorphins are the neurotransmitters in your brain that actually feel good, you know? And we get hooked on it, man. We get hooked on the workaholic train of becoming more and more and more because it feels so good. And I do hope that more people consider that if all of your feel good comes from thinking about the future, maybe there's some opportunity to heal in the now. One thing you talk about often that I really wanted to have the chance to discuss with you today, man, was the concept of masculine wounds. You use that terminology quite often. Can you tell me more about that?
Well, the masculine wound is born out of how we relate with our father figure. It doesn't have to be your biological father. It's whoever raised you, the male side of who raised you. And most of us who grew up in like the millennial generation had unhealthy relationships with our fathers because our fathers generally weren't the most in tune, sensitive, connected men. They had to shut that part of themselves off to provide for the family. And providing back in the baby boomer generation was just harden up, get the job done, like be tough. And it was necessary, bro.
Just be tough.
Like my old man was from Scotland. He immigrated to Australia from Scotland, and as hard as they come, bro. Like the Scottish is so fucking hard. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for what that he imparted onto me through that work ethic and what I seen him sacrifice to be able to provide for my family. But there comes a point in our generation where our parents' generation sacrificed for us, not so that we could provide. It's so that we can evolve. So for us as men or as women in this generation, we have the opportunity, like we've been gifted the opportunity to evolve into a new level of consciousness so that we don't have to make the same sacrifices that our parents did. And one of the ways we evolve into that is we have to start to look at the wounding that we picked up from our parents. Now, our parents unknowingly and unconsciously passed on the wounding that they had from their parents to us. Now, this is the generation where the line gets drawn in the sand, and we get to say, no, I'm not going to pass this on to my kids. And the way we do that is we look at, okay, like, how is my relationship to the feminine in my life as a man? How is my relationship to the masculine? How that shows up is it's an internal dynamic first and foremost. If you're really hard on yourself, if you struggle to just give yourself permission to relax, chances are that that's your dad's voice. That's the father wound saying, like, get on with it. You don't have time to slow down. You don't have time to relax. It's an unhealthy relationship with the father, which is the larger father, is the one who is, you could say God, you could say spirit, you could say the emanating force that allows all of us to exist. It's the space, the larger
consciousness.
Yeah, consciousness. That's the father that we should be now starting to relate with. And if you look at, okay, how much time do I spend with God or consciousness or life? And how much time do I spend communing with that? And if you don't spend any time at all with it, then you probably don't have a good relationship with the father, because the father is the space that allows life to exist. And the life that's existing, the flux, the change, the impermanence, the chaoticness, the emotionality, that's the feminine. That's the emotion. That's the divine mother. So as you start to like zoom further out, you realize there's this dance happening always. Things are always changing. Life's in seasonings. Your internal seasons are happening. And how you relate with all of that really depends on how you relate with your internal father and your internal mother. So you can use the external. You can use your relationship with women and men just as honest reflections as to where your woundings lie. If you don't get along with men, if you struggle with relating with women, you can't feel them, then chances are you probably have a disconnected relationship with your own internal dynamic. And you can call that masculine and feminine. You could call it yin and yang. You could call it like left and right brain, left brain, whatever you want to call it. But it's all just an internal play first, an internal relating that then reflects the external relating, if that makes sense.
What would you identify are the most common masculine wounds, difficulties with relating to the masculine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the one that causes all men to go to patterns of burnout, never feeling enough, right? What we yearn from our dad is to just acknowledge that you're doing a good job. You're enough, son. Like, son, that was fucking amazing. You're crushing it. I'm so proud of you. So when that's lacking, we then unconsciously start to seek that from everything outside of us. And when you can start to notice that pattern, which is fear, it's a fear-based pattern running in the background, when you can start to notice it and just like interrupt it and start to see these parts of you, and you start to stop and go, no, I don't need to be in a rush. I can move slow because I know that, like, hey, I've got nothing to prove. I'm perfectly whole but not yet complete. And when you move from that place, all of a sudden there's this like this break in the loop. It's just it's an unconscious loop that's running in the background for most people who haven't moved through their father wounds.
Why is it so hard for people who are overachievers to stop and to feel the current moment?
Because like you said, bro, it's scary. Because when you stop, it brings up everything that you've been running from. And most of us are running from the shame and humiliation and embarrassment that we felt when we were fucking 6 years old. When dad didn't give us the love, or dad fucking told us off, or dad said, shut the fuck up, get on with it, be a man, or hey, you fucked up, something like that.
And it seems like a life well wasted to spend the next 6 decades of your life trying to get back at that moment. And because you're older now, man, you're stronger now, and you couldn't at the time when you were young take being looked over. You couldn't take it. So it was traumatic for you. That's the beautiful part about trauma work, though, is that your emotional bandwidth has increased. You're an adult now. And so if you're willing to go back through and sit with that moment that felt like you were not enough, it's going to be painful. You're going to cry. You're going to break apart, but you won't disappear. You're not going to disappear. And then, I think then you could start to touch into what we're talking about today, which is, what is your purpose? Not your purpose of reconciling the past, but if we can realize we have the strength to accept the past as it happened, then we can really take the next step into participating in what God's plan is for us here. Anyways, that's what I mean. It feels like a life well wasted, because you go, great, you're 65, 75. Sorry to shout out all my 65-year-olds who are listening, going, I'm dying. No, you're not dying, baby. Keep on living, baby. If you're, 100 years old and, you go, what did I do with my whole life? And it finally catches up to you. Maybe you can't move fast anymore. And then you're still 6 years old inside, man. You're still hurting. And you go, damn it, I just spent the last 80 years trying to not feel the pain that, if I'm being honest, I'm fully capable of feeling, processing, and moving on from.
Yeah, man. It goes back to the question, which is, why are we here? And I believe that we're here to evolve. I believe that we are evolving. Like the universe is evolving, whether we like it or not. The speed in which you evolve really comes down to how willing you are to confront the things that you're afraid of.
What's your spiritual perspective, man? Where are you spiritually? What's the whole game about? Where are we? What's going on?
I mean, I can only give my perspective and what I believe, but obviously that's only a small fragment of what's probably possible. But the reason I believe so strongly in my spiritual belief system is because I had a good friend, die in a motorbike crash in 2020 during COVID. And he was on a very similar path to me. We grew up playing football together. He was an absolute fucking warrior. And we lost a good soul. But before he died, he asked me about my belief systems, about what I think happens after death. And I said, I'm not too sure, bro. And he told me to buy this book called Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. And when I found out that he passed away, I had the book waiting for me, and I hadn't started reading it yet. So I started to pick it up and read it. And what I felt like I got from that book was like a message beyond the grave. It was almost like his soul was trying to pass on all this information to me. And I was just like, I was just a sponge. I was just like, my soul just absorbed it, because I had so many questions. I was like, why? Why was he taken? And what I am led to believe is that our souls come to Earth to learn lessons, to evolve in the spiritual dimension. Now, our souls don't come to Earth for a period of time. They don't come here for time. They come here for lessons. It's a fundamental distinction, because time is linear, right? But on the spiritual level, it's vertical, meaning we're going up in dimensions as you evolve. We're here. Our minds think we're here. We're born when we're fucking 0 and we die when we're 80. And it's this vertical, this horizontal dimension. And if you think of it like that, it's quite a dark thought to know that we're only here for a certain amount of time. That's so sad. We're born and we die. But if you think we're here for infinite time in vertical, then
To learn lessons.
Yeah, like how do we then evolve in that vertical dimension? It's through learning. It's through coming to take on the lessons that you were meant to get in this lifetime, because I believe we've had many other lifetimes, and I believe there are many different souls at different levels in this current lifetime, which is why you can meet someone that's super young and be like, wow, you're just fucking super, like you, bro, 26 years old, holy shit, like how do you know all this at such a young age? Well, your soul has probably lived many lifetimes, and now you have a unique purpose and reason for being here right now to accumulate
lots of LSD. Wisdom.
Yeah.
And exactly. Lots of LSD.
That too.
That too. Yeah, bro. That the reason I ask is because that gives such where you kind of turn yourself towards in terms of your philosophical, what's it all about? What's going on here? It changes the way that you interact with life's unfolding. If it's about, if it's about getting it while the getting's good before it all ends, I'm going back to where I started. I'm going back to what I was fucking doing, baby. I'm going back to trying to get as much as I can before they close the store. But something about my internal register doesn't think it's like that. It doesn't seem like that, because when you're focused on only the getting, like we said earlier, there's another part of the mechanism that, it's the yin and the yang. It goes, well, okay, it's not all about that. But when you really just try on for size, regardless, if you're listening to this and you go, I don't know, try on for size the idea that maybe you're here for a lesson, and you learn the lessons by going through the difficulty with a sincere warrior-like level of acceptance of that difficulty. And that I'm reminded of Jordan Peterson says, that hell is like purposeless suffering. Purposeless suffering, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That, happiness isn't so much what we're after, but purpose. I talked to a guy, Mason Sawyer, recently on this podcast, who lost his high school sweetheart of 15 years, her and his children, in a car accident in one day. And we talked about happiness, and he's like, I'm not happy, man. I'm not happy anymore, but I have purpose. I have a purpose of coming alongside others to feel my pain with them and feel their pain and to connect through this pain. And that trumps happiness every day of the week, And when you can look at your life, God forbid it's that level of pain, but when pain comes in whatever form, if you can look at it through the lens of purpose and go, okay, because that's all. I'm with you on that, man. That's all that life's trying to do, is just to try to stretch you out, just to move you, just to open you up, just to tune back in to creation, to life, to the tastes, to the smells, to the colors, to the senses, to the connection, to the games that you can play with children, with a ball, to the games you can play with your brothers, with aggression, with intellect. How cool is it all to experience? We just kind of get stuck up in side missions because we felt insignificant, and so we want to spend our life trying to build a billion-dollar company and get our dick sucked by endless different women, and it just doesn't seem right.
Yep. Yeah, man. It's really down to like what is it that your soul is here to express. That's what I feel like it comes down to.
What's it here? What are you here for your soul to express?
What does your soul want to express? Like, what does it want to contribute? What's its way of being of service to this world? And
tell me about that, man. How has that thought guided you?
Well, that one of the purposes that our souls come to earth is to learn lessons, number one. But the other one is to be of service, to help other souls, awaken to this realization that they're here for something. They're here for a reason. And when you're of service, when you start to help someone, or you kind of go out of your way to make sure that you are generous, you're giving from generosity, meaning you're giving from the overflow. You've taken care of yourself. You've aligned yourself with your purpose, and you're living in alignment. Then you're here to give, And that could show up in a podcast. It could show up in a conversation. It could show up in a business or in a coaching, or just making someone's day better. Like, how can you start to be of service to other souls on this planet? And when you start to live from that place, I believe God starts to work with you. God starts to unlock gifts, dormant potential, spiritual gifts, things that he goes, okay, here you go. More support for you because you're doing God's work. And that's just how I've seen it play out in my own life, bro. And it just confirms the faith and trust in something greater than us.
Your soul is expressing different things at different times. And, your interactions with people and how your soul responds to them and what they need in that moment. To be true to that message, you have to be present. To allow yourself to learn and allow yourself to express in the moment, currently, authentically. Presence is difficult. It's very difficult. You talk about cultivating presence, especially within the dynamic of a romantic relationship. I wanted to talk to you about that because one of the last videos I saw on YouTube was, my girl's out of town, man. My girl just left town for the weekend. Time to hop on Pornhub, you know what I'm saying, and just make a weekend of it. And then you said another way to go about this would, my woman's away, my partner's away. Maybe I should take this time of solitude to deepen my presence. What do you mean, man?
Well, thanks for tuning into the content, brother. I love that you've opened yourself up to receiving it. Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, for men, one of the things we get to give, one of the things we're here to give in the world is our presence. I mean, everyone's here to give presence in a way, but as men, if we can deepen our presence, what that unlocks in the women around us is a level of safety and permission to be free in their expression. And I think you can attest to this as well. Any man can attest to this. When he sees a woman that's fully free in her expression, it's so attractive, it's so nourishing, it's so fulfilling. And then that feeds back into us. And then we get more presence, and we can give that back to our woman, and she's free in her expression. She can give more love to us, and it just feeds back in. And the only way a man can deepen his presence is if he has made peace with all of the darkness, all of the shit inside of him that he hasn't, that he's been avoiding, the shame, the anger, the guilt, all of that. And the more he's at peace internally, bro, the deeper he gets to go. And then it's like a big oak tree. Like a man who's gone deep, he's got all these roots and he's grounded in the earth, but then he has this big oak tree where he's able to flourish and just give to the world. But he has to go deep.
It's a process. It's a journey developing presence. The thing that always comes up for me is the image of trying to hold down a basketball standing in water. And you have a conversation with someone, and especially if you're trying to hold down two, there's this just fidgeting, and you're monitoring, making sure this thing doesn't pop up. The whole time you're talking with somebody, you're making sure they don't find out. They don't know that you're a piece of shit. They don't know that you're not that cool. They don't know you don't have that much money, or that you don't really know what you're talking about, or that your dick is small. They're going to find out. They're going to find out. And when you say you deepen your presence, that rocks, man. You deepen your presence by coming to terms, accepting all the darkness, all the and I think about darkness. I don't just think so much about but I think about the stuff you put in the darkness because you didn't like it. It wasn't dark. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just humanity. You didn't like it, so you put it in that shadowy area, and you're just holding it, going oh, come in, and exactly. You talk to someone with a lot of things in their mind, and you can sense that, man. There's something so fucking badass when you talk to somebody and you can tell, they're right there with you. They're present. And it feels really safe. I can sense it inside of me, it feels really safe to be around somebody who is okay with what you might discover interacting with them.
Well said. Really well said. Yeah, you nailed it, man. And it's a really beautiful gift that you can give to someone. The gift of hey, whatever's going on inside of you, it's safe here. There's no judgment here. I got you.
Can we talk about the other?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
Mm.
Can we talk about the other direction? So you don't have presence and you're this avoidant thing. What happens to our partner when someone who is more masculine is avoidant, isn't present? What happens?
They start to wither. They start to wither away, sadly, because when you're not present, your heart starts to close. You can't receive love, then you can't give love. And what's beautiful about women that I really admire is women are so devotional. They'll devote themselves to just giving, giving, giving to a man, even when he's not even fucking giving back to her. But eventually, over time, she will start to wither, meaning she dries up internally. And when she dries up, that's when she starts to really lose that purity, that beautiful, nourishing expression that the feminine can bring. And it's sad because then a lot of women start to then label men as toxic, or label men as like, they label men as like fucking, domineering or whatever it is, or and they start to develop an unhealthy relationship with the men in their life. So
The boys.
yeah, yeah. So
The boys, like the boys in their life, they're still in that age where they got hurt, and here they are. You have problems with men, you have problem with young boys who haven't grown into manhood.
correct, correct. So it then becomes like a loop, that if a woman has attracted a man into her life who hasn't been able to really support her and hold that presence for her, chances are she grew up around a man who wasn't able to give her that love and give her that, like
You said
that.
it's a loop. Say that again, man. Sorry, I couldn't hear you that well.
That's right. It's a loop. Like, so a woman who's attracting that kind of man into her life, it's because it's playing out the pattern that she had in childhood around her father. So she will keep attracting men into her life who don't see her emotionally, who don't give her the love that she really needs, because it's life's way of trying to show to her, hey, you need to just see yourself first. You need to love and let go of all this pain that you've been carrying around. And when she
Is
does,
that
you're going,
is that because our identity becomes that thing that it was in response to our parent, the father, let's say if we're talking from the perspective of someone in the relationship with their father, they don't feel seen, so they develop this personality that interacts really well with the avoidant masculine, and so then they in their mind go, I want someone who's here, present, nourishing, loving, present, but they don't have that mechanism, that they've developed themselves into a puzzle piece that fits with the avoidant, and until they heal that, they're not going to be able to fit with something else.
correct. Yeah, you nailed it. Essentially, we attract the romantic partner that resembles the patterns from our parents, because that's how we get the clearest mirror as to where we need to work on ourselves. So in other words,
What do you
your romantic partner isn't here to make you happy. They're here to make you more conscious.
from your perspective, man, say that last part again.
Your relationships, the woman or the man you attract into your life that you love and you want to have sex with, they're not there to make you happy. They're there to make you more conscious and aware of the parts of yourself that need love.
My literally next thought was to talk about love. Like we don't do love. We do like recreating past traumas with people, and we call that love. And the sparks are flying because we fit perfectly, because they're toxic and so are you. And it's not. What do you call that versus what you call love and purpose and increasing consciousness, Jordan?
Yeah, a lot of people confuse love with like trauma bonding. You triggering the same traumas and then getting stuck in the same cycle because it's familiar. And the familiarity, again, comes back to, it reminds me of how I used to feel around my dad when he didn't give me the love and he didn't see me. And then they create the same like cycling arguments, and it's addictive.
Are you trying to go back and trying to rewrite the past? Are you trying to win their love finally? Find someone that fits your father and then win their love through the romantic, that kind of process?
Ultimately, you're just trying to win your own love always. And whatever's reflecting the pain to you is just the messenger, is the gift. And that's why our romantic partners trigger us so much, because they're the clearest mirrors as to where those unconscious loops are still running. But my invitation, or what I've learned in my journey, is when you can start to catch and see all of those loops, and instead of blaming other people for like, they're fucked up, they're triggering me, she's toxic, he's toxic, blah, blah, blah. No. Like, take responsibility for the shit that's coming up in you. And when you do, and you work through it and you process it, all of a sudden your relationship becomes secure. There's no attachments running. There's no dependency on them. It becomes a fresh container for something to be created that's can be very, very nourishing. And
Ooh, interesting.
yeah, and that container then takes on its own path. What I've found is like the relationship has its own form of evolution.
Yeah. Take ownership of what comes up in you.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me some more insights on that.
Ownership is how you reclaim your power here on earth. You know, like when you're in the mode of victim mentality. We all know a victim. Yeah, we've all slipped into victim, bro. Like sometimes I complain about shit all the time. Like fucking complaining about the cost of living out here. It's so fucking expensive. It's ridiculous. But in other words, that's just me projecting my own scarcity onto the world. When in reality, there's no scarcity. There's just abundance. And then when I take ownership, for that, all of a sudden I'm in control of how I choose to show up. No government, no institution, no person will determine how I get to show up in the world. And that just requires radical responsibility, radical ownership of your emotional state.
I walked through a pretty intense trauma therapy session the other day where I had, through the sexual healing I've gone through recently, one of the last things, the very bottom of the well, was this hardened fucking anger towards towards the people that stole my sex life out of my adolescence as part of my natural growth. And the exercise, my therapist had me sit there and tune into that, and tune into the sadness that sat beneath it. What are you sad about? You know, like they took so much from me, man. I had a best friend who I loved, and I wanted to fuck her. I wanted to have sex with her. I wanted to just be naked together. I wanted to experience the love, and we cared about each other so much, and that got ripped from me. And then it created this horrible relationship with sex. And now I've spent the last 8 years of my life, you know, being a fucking sex obsessed cyclops, goddamn fucking addict, you know. And it's their fucking, like, they fucking did that shit. Pisses me off, you know. And I'm sitting there and I'm doing this all with my eyes closed, and he's got a, you know, who made you think this? I listed off the 8 or so people that, you know, and as a 15-year-old or so, rarely made sure these messages were present. And tuning into that anger, how do you feel? You know, how do you really feel about this shit? And I'm feeling it, you know. And then he said, I got one more part of this, and this might hurt. Are you ready for it? And I said, yeah. And he said, you didn't have to believe them. All of the things they made you believe, you chose to believe it. You listened to what they said and you went along with it. And it was like I went from being like, to like, oh, God damn it. Oh, damn it. You know? Who stole my fucking keys? Who has my fucking car keys? Did you take my fucking car key? And I hear him jangle on my jacket. You know? And it was like all the anger, because there was no one to be angry at. It just disappeared. Because I'm not going to be angry at myself. I was young. I didn't know better. But I had the power to decide, and I just made a mistake. We're young. You make mistakes. You made a mistake to be super, super religious and keep your dick in your pants, which is kind of weird because you're fighting against biology. There's no one to blame but yourself, brother. Move on. That radical acceptance is hard, man. I think it's hard because, you know, it on the other side, I mean, God, literally the last 2 days I felt so good. Because there's this familiar fucking pain, anger inside of me. When I feel any type of sexual energy, I get pissed. And the last 2 days, it's gone away completely. Because it's like, who are you mad at? Oh, I'm not mad at anybody. You know, I'm really not mad at anybody. I made a mistake when I was a kid, and, you know, we live and we learn. There's no one to be mad at. But why, Jordan, do we resist that radical responsibility when it has the key to our freedom?
It's a really good question, bro. And really, really the answer was always really simple. I've always now realized that the answers to the toughest questions in life are always super simple. It's scary. It's hard and scary because it's just the unknown. Like, we've not done it before. It's the unfamiliar. And our mind is genuinely wired for the familiar. It's wired for safety. And it's built into our nature to be wired for survival. So it's essentially like your mind is here to keep you safe, but your soul is here to evolve. And we have to just start to practice listening to the soul or the body, right? The body and the soul are just trying to expand. The mind just wants you to be safe. So in practical terms, like something's pissing you off and you want to blame something external, and that's easy. It's easy to do that because you've done that your whole life. But now you have an opportunity to go, you know what, maybe there's another path here. Maybe I can just choose to accept this and confront the feeling, which is, it's all it is. It's always a feeling. Confront the feeling that I don't want to feel, and just be with it.
It's always a feeling.
Yeah. And once you choose to be with the feeling and just love it and accept it, like what happened to you, your shoulders start to relax. You start to go, oh, actually, I can fucking let this go. I don't need to hold this. I don't need to hold on to this. And when you let it go and then you discover that lightness on the other side, that's evolution. Then you become a new man.
One quick thing on that. I heard someone say one time that masculinity, the way he defined it, was the ability to sit presently with any emotion.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yes.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
The mind wants to protect us. The soul wants to expand, wants to grow, wants to express and to heal. If we're getting super spiritual, light it up and we'll talk about it. If we're here to learn and we've been thrust into this material plane to experience stuff, to learn stuff, and to express stuff. Our mind is the graphics card of sorts. It's the processing unit. It's where we perceive. When I think about the mind, when you say the mind wants to protect, I also thought perceive. The mind perceives. The idea is to perceive, but it needs to protect because it's wounded. Yeah?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. The mind perceives something at some point that's too scary. It's too difficult. And so it moves from perceiving to protecting. And then the journey begins.
Well said. That's exactly it, brother. Yeah, that's exactly it. We come into the world as pure and free in our expression as we can be as children. Then we perceive something that happens too fast, too soon, too much, which is what trauma is. Too much, too soon, too fast. That happens, which you can almost say like every child is exposed to that to some degree because it's a part of the journey that we're put into. And then you go on, and then you're in a circle. You start born free, then you come back too much, too soon, too fast, trauma, rewiring, and then your evolution begins. You're trying to come back to your original source, which is purity.
This process of growing, of healing, of letting your mind heal, letting the quivering and shaking stop and get back to perceiving and expand your heart so you can learn your lessons. Something we've touched on a couple times, and I want to pull the conversation into is the partnership, the romantic element of it, and the role that we play in our partner's lives and vice versa. One question that I have for you, man, is marriage, a lifelong commitment with one person. Or if we do think about our relationship with others as helping, assisting in their personal journey, that time, if we get back to our time thing, if we're not here and we're here, that begins to make the structure of marriage and long-term relationships and the narrative that we experience in America and in Australia, I'm assuming, start to seem a little bit different. What do you think? Is it do we find a lifelong partner, or do we move throughout as we learn the lessons and we bow out of partnerships?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like there's. How can one say that this is my lifelong partner when you don't even know what the fuck's gonna happen tomorrow? Like, like my friend, when he died, I was like, I'm sure he had a partner. He had someone that loved him. They'd been dating for a long time. She was convinced he was his lifelong partner. So we don't know shit. Like, you could say, yeah, I'm married to this person for life, but how do you know? Like, maybe there's a point in that journey where your souls are going in different directions, and maybe that relationship was here for a specific season and maybe a specific reason, and maybe it wasn't meant to be a lifelong partnership. So I'm not saying I don't agree with marriage. I agree with commitment. But saying like, I'm going to commit to you till death do us part, and I have to fucking abide by that no matter what, I don't know. Like, because
How do you,
it's changed.
sorry to interrupt you, bud, but how do you differentiate? So I don't believe in marriage necessarily, right? I'm with you on that. I don't really know if you lock up with one person forever and you say, all right, no matter what happens,
Yeah.
we're going to be buddy buddy. But I do believe in commitment.
Yeah.
That brings up something interesting, man. And what do you mean by that?
I'm committed to you right now. That's all I can promise you.
Bro, it's funny. No, the reason I laugh is because I'm so with you on that. It sounds so fuckboy-y in one department, but it also sounds so honest.
Yeah.
Because because also going like, I'm gonna love you, and you're going to, here, let me just say this. Saying you're going to be the person that continues to open, expand, and grow my soul through this wildly mysterious experience called life. You're going to be that person for me, and I'm going to be that person for you until we die. That's just as unsteady and shaky as saying full-heartedly, I am completely committed to you at this time in my life. I actually think the latter is more genuine.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And it's not, the fuckboy nature to it it comes from a man who is still afraid of commitment, and he wants to keep his options open because he's afraid of like cutting all other options out, because he hasn't really developed that level of commitment within himself first. Right? It's the man that's choosing to play life on the surface. So that it's an important distinction.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that commitment?
Yeah, it's an important distinction, bro, because a man with like masculine wounds, right, is a man who is afraid of going deep. And a man that's afraid of going deep is afraid of committing to something. And it doesn't just have to be women. It could just be a specific career, a specific job, a specific purpose, right? But when a man has developed like depth within himself, he can go super deep. And he can say, I'm going to commit fully to this one thing or to this one woman right now. And she will trust him. She will feel him, because it's not just about the words, bro. You know what I mean? It's like, it's, hey, I'm committed to you right now, babe. Like she will feel the words of the difference between a man who is playing life on the surface and a man who's actually serious about what he means by committing to depth. So it's more of a felt sense. A woman will feel a man's commitment, and he will not even need to say the words to her, but she'll feel how like committed he is to her. And
to even throw a little, bit of an opening on that statement, I think when we do use the terms of a woman relating to a man, more so in the context of masculine and feminine, which are energies that exist in everybody to some extent.
Well said. Yeah, exactly. So a man who is committed to loving himself as much as possible, he will then be able to love a woman in all of her expression as much as possible. And oftentimes, like when commitment like that comes up, that's why relationships that, go deep, like require a lot of courage, a lot of surrender. A woman has to like surrender to a man who is choosing to show up in that level, in that way. It's scary.
Why?
Because he's going to pull her into depths that maybe she won't be able to go on her own. And that is scary for a lot of women. And that is essentially why us as men, we need women, and women need men, because we can't actually explore those depths on our own. You can get to a certain level, but it's in the relating with the feminine and the relating with the masculine that you get to really discover that true union in like, this is what it feels like to be in a space of full surrender to something far greater than us.
I'd like to come back to surrender if we have time. I want to stay on commitment for a second. Why does the feminine have commitment as the first box to check? Once you're committed, then I can show up. What is it?
Because even just like when you say that out loud, all the women that are listening to this, their bodies respond differently when a man says he's committed. When a man says like, I'm all in right now on you, on this relationship, her body responds to that. It's like, fuck, okay, whew, he's got me. He's all in on me. I can relax into him. And that's what she needs, man. Women need that. Like a man that's like a little bit, a man that's on the fence. A man's like, oh, let's just wait and see, babe. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I want to commit to you or this relationship right now, but let's just see how it plays out. A woman that's listening to this, her body will respond completely differently to that. And she's not going to be fully free to just like surrender into his arms and fully let her like feminine essence like exude, because he hasn't unlocked it for her because he's not committed.
Yeah. I know that that's the way it goes. I know that from my own personal relationship. Do you have any insight into why that is? What the mechanisms are that the feminine says I can't show up until it's secure?
Because for a woman to fully open herself up to anyone, especially a man, it's a very vulnerable thing. It's very vulnerable, man. Like a woman is, taking in like a man's energy in a completely different way in which we take in a woman's energy. If you think about how a woman receives a man's energy, it's in Chinese medicine as well, that you can measure the poles, the electromagnetic poles, right? In her vagina, in her cervix, in and around the lower part of her body, she's receptive. She's pulling in a man's energy from her lower region. And then she's giving to him through her heart. And as a man, it's the other way around. We are giving from our balls, from our penis, from our sexual powers, where we penetrate life with that energy, and we receive from our heart. So the exchange is totally different. And for a woman, it's such a sacred thing, man, to allow a man into her, not just energetically, but physically as well. And for a woman to really open up in that way to a man, like, a man's got to fucking prove himself, man. He's got to show that he's like up to standard. And a real like embodied woman will not allow any man into her space that lacks clarity, lacks commitment, lacks stability. You know what I mean? So
that, yeah. And when you start to think about that, man, that was for me the inspiration to move into manhood, was, and the arc in my mind for masculinity. In my head, the way I made sense of it was the adolescent masculine is focused on win. I'm going to win. I'm going to win the attention, win the mates. And then at some point during that arc, there has to be a transition to defend. Now it's my turn to stand in between that thing which I've won, brought over to me, and defend it. And that's a transition that's hard. And there's not a lot of representation of that in media. It's not about, you're encouraged so much to have your value as a man based on what you can win, and not ever thinking about that. Hey, boss, the next game starts once you have a woman or a partner that says, okay, yeah, let's do it. You and me, let's do it. Then at that point begins the process of deepening and going to this space of presence. And it's a whole nother game. It's a whole nother dimension. I don't like calling it a game, but it's a whole nother universe doing that.
Well said. Yeah, because it's not a game, and like business is a game, right? There's a winner, there's a loser, there's a scoreboard, you're crushing it, and there's failing. But in relationship, the purpose of the relationship is it's a dance. There's no beginning and end. There's no like, it's like you don't begin the relationship to achieve a certain outcome. It's like we're not in life to achieve a certain outcome. The dance, like, it's just, you just keep dancing until the music turns off. You know what I mean? When the music's off, that's it. Okay. And no one knows when the music's there. The purpose of music is not to get to the end. It's to just dance and play and like see where it goes,
Yeah. I know that for me, man, a really challenging part of showing up in relationships for real was I took a long time, and still am, learning to really trust myself. And so beginning to feel the lean from a partner in the past has got me to move out the fucking way, because I don't want to be the person held at fault if you lean on me and I disappear, because I don't know if I'm going to be here or not. I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know if I know that I know I don't know. That's something that's been really challenging for me, man. I've had to work through a lot of that.
Yeah, man. It's a hard thing sometimes to clarify like what it is that you want in this world. And I think that's something that is deeply attractive when a woman crosses paths with a man who knows what he wants. So I think it's for the men listening, is like, clarify that. Like, who do you want to be? Who do you want to show up as? What are you here to impact? And why is that important?
Yeah, and then allow yourself, and we'll close on the conversation, man. I know we've been pushing a little bit. And then allow yourself to diversify what you want, to include the things that now you've gotten in the process. Allow yourself to enjoy those things, the partnership. Book a fucking weekend in a cabin with your lover, dude, and turn your fucking phone off.
Yeah.
and get busy, baby. Do it, baby.
That's it. Great magical moments, bro. I'm all for that. 100%.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I don't want to hold you for long. We've been going for quite a while now. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Grounded Warrior retreat. Just briefly before we roll, I just wanted to check in and see how that went. I know it was your first event with men, and it looked really badass, man. Would you mind just telling me a little bit about that before we dip out?
Yeah, thanks, bro. It was spectacular, man. It was really the thing that I feel like I want to keep doing here for the rest of my life, is just bring men together, create spaces where men can come together and feel safe expressing themselves, feel safe exploring parts of themselves that maybe they wouldn't be able to outside of those confines. And I'm doing another one. I'm doing another retreat in about 3 weeks out in Sedona, and it's sold out at the moment. So can't fucking wait to go at it again and just create memories, bro, for the fellas. Like, we all fucking deserve it. We all want to hang out with like high caliber men and just be ourselves. And yeah, bro, I love. There's nothing that fulfills me more than that. Is like just bringing good men together. So yeah, man, I'll let you know how it goes.
I think
to wrap it up.
I think I saw. Was there some tobacco snorting involved in this last retreat?
Yeah, we did some hape. Yeah, which is the tobacco ceremony, which has been a really great medicine for me over the years.
Do you plan on any additional medicines in these retreats?
Yeah, we'll probably incorporate some like microdosing with mushrooms, with psilocybin. I have an amazing client that I'm working with right now who's a cultivator, and his energy that he brings behind the mushrooms is really special. So when I know they've come from the right place, I incorporate it, but only small amounts. I don't think I need to be blasting people to the moon, but I've been there and done that. Everyone has their own journey with the medicine, you know.
That's so cool, man. I think it's really awesome what you're doing, brother. Appreciate your time today, and I wish you the most luck with the events that you're running and just the work you're doing, bro.
Thanks, Braxton. It's been a great conversation, bro. Really, really honored to come on here and share and discuss the things we went into. So appreciate you, man.
Absolutely, bro. Cool. Thank you guys so much for checking out this episode of Let's Keep Talking. Thank you to Jordan for being here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and rate this episode. Peace.